Hi everyone, it's Melissa, and today I am sharing my thoughts on The Whalebone Theater by Joanna Quinn. I think this is a book that a lot of readers would really enjoy, which is why I wanted to talk about it. But I also wanted to share my perspective because the reviews I'd seen on this book had been extremely positive, and while I liked it, I didn't love it like I thought I would. So this review might help to temper some expectations. Like I said, I think a lot of people would really love this book, but it wasn't the perfect read for me, so I thought I'd share my thoughts here. This novel is about 3 siblings. None of them are full siblings. Some of them are half siblings, some of them are less related, but they are all raised as siblings in this unusual family situation. This novel is set in England between the First World War and the Second World War. Part of the novel takes place through that time period during growing up years, and then part of the novel takes place through World War II, and we see what the siblings are doing during the war. I'd like to start with what I liked about the novel, because I liked quite a bit about the novel. I thought the family dynamics were really interesting. And overall, I think all of the characters are interesting in vastly different ways. So characters in general were probably the strongest aspect of this novel. It was interesting to see how the family dynamics affected their personalities, their development, their standing within their family, like their position within the household, and how they are perceived by the broader community. Another aspect of the book that I really enjoyed was everything around the theater. So one of the siblings finds this whale carcass, this whale that has either beached itself or has washed up on shore, and kind of claims the carcass as her own, and they end up, with the help of this artist, taking the bones and constructing the titular theater. And there's a lot of themes explored through the theater and through this whale. There's a lot in this book about performance and the role that you play or are slotted into within your own family or within broader society. And there's also a lot of imagery surrounding decay and loss. So the carcass being one of these, but also as the story ages and the house gets dusty and is in disrepair and those types of things. So that's kind of a motif, I guess, that is throughout the novel. But the starting point of that is really this dead whale. Another thing I really loved about this novel, and this is probably my favorite aspect of the book, is the writing. I think the only way I can really describe the writing style here is that it's very timeless. It fits perfectly with the time and place, so it doesn't feel like anachronistic in any way. It doesn't feel out of place. It feels very authentic to the period, but it doesn't feel outdated at any point. That's what I mean by timeless. The writing is just perfect for this novel, but also doesn't feel like it was written during that time period. That aspect was really well done. Where the book started to lose some of its sheen for me was in the plot. The part of the novel where the children are growing up together, we can see their relationships forming, where they create the theater and they start making basically this little center of the community, this theater that is so important to their community. All of that stuff I really loved. But as the book enters World War II, it's not that I didn't want anything regarding World War II, because I think there's a natural progression of life between those wars, and then as we're entering the Second World War, how that changes everything. But it was just the length of time, the amount of book that takes place during the Second World War is, I guess, just not what I was expecting and not what I wanted to read and not what I personally found very interesting. At this point, we follow more of the siblings' individual stories, and I really missed the dynamics between them and seeing how their relationships grow and change. We don't get the same kind of interactions between the siblings, and I think on their own, they weren't as interesting to me as they were together. There are a couple of exceptions of scenes that take place during the Second World War that I think really move the story along and really help to solidify those family dynamics and those relationships. But on the whole, I just wasn't very invested in that part of the book taking place during the Second World War. And unfortunately, that's a lot of the book. I listened to it on audio, so I can't pinpoint the exact length, but it was over half of the book, I think, was set during the Second World War. And the book changes in a lot of ways. There's a shift in tone, and rightfully so. That would have been a life-changing event. It was a world-changing event. I just wanted less of that. I feel like that could have been the ending to the book, where we see where these siblings, where their life takes them, how their lives are uprooted by this war. But it was just too much of it for me. I wanted more of their time together growing up, and I wanted to see more of those connections and how they related to each other. And that's my main criticism of the book, is just where the plot goes and the length of time we're in that section of the book, because everything else, the writing, the characters, the theming, I thought were really well done. So, like I said, I think a lot of people would really love this book, but just know that if you're not into war fiction, or that sounds like something that you wouldn't be interested in, then it is a significant chunk of the book. Otherwise, I think it is such a great book, and I would still recommend it. I didn't dislike it. I enjoyed my time reading it. It just wasn't quite what I expected. But if you've read it, I would love to know what you thought of the book and what you got out of it. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Leave me a comment below, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Bye.